For years, in the quiet woods of Michigan, a man lived a rather ordinary life. A life filled with family, friends, work, the day-to-day things you and I both know so well. But there was something else. Something he couldn't quite forget. You see, this man had seen something. Not in a movie, not in a dream, but with his own eyes. Something tall. Something massive. Something covered in hair. Is something that, if he told most people, would earn him laughter instead of belief. So he kept it quiet. For a while. But that sighting, that sound, those moments when he knew he wasn't alone in the Michigan woods, they stayed with him. They nagged at him. Until one day he decided silence wasn't enough. Instead of hiding it away, he turned on a camera, he opened a microphone, and he began to talk. First a little, then a lot, about Bigfoot, about cryptids, about the paranormal, and about anyone else out there who had seen what the rest of the world said wasn't real. And do you know what happened? People listened. They listened because they too had stories. Stories of ghosts in their homes, lights in their skies, creatures in their backyards. People who were laughed at too, but with him, they weren't laughed at anymore. He became something else, a host, an interviewer, a storyteller. Now, he wasn't just a man who once saw a giant in the trees. 3 live shows a week. A podcast, Brunch with Bigfoot, and hundreds of videos, thousands of listeners. Thousands who no longer felt so alone. And when the lights go on in his Michigan studio, when the camera shines, another guest calls in from another corner of the world, he's no longer just a witness. He is the voice for all those who whisper, "I've seen it too." So today, when you hear a man from Michigan speaking boldly about Bigfoot, about UFOs, about ghosts, about mysteries the world isn't ready to explain, you remember that it all began not with fame, not with microphones, not with an audience, but with one man standing quietly in the woods, looking at something the world says doesn't exist. And now you know the beginning of the story. It belongs to a man known as Bigfoot Michigan Rob.
Hello, one and all, and welcome to Beyond BMR with Krista. But you know what? Krista has the night off. We had the conference. She's got things going on. However, I have the lovely other boo, my boo Brandy. That's right, from the Blinds and the Booze Paranormal Podcast, joining me tonight. Miss Brandy, please subscribe to the Blinds and the Booze Paranormal Podcast. If not already on YouTube, please subscribe to Bigfoot Michigan Rob on YouTube. If not already, Texas Front Porch, Paranormal Paul, Donnie Cho Says Stuff, Truth or Tinfoil, Our Paranormal World with Monica Rollins, all of us misfits. Thank you, everybody, for coming on in. Thank you. Brian Colsey has been a BMR pirate, mateys. Arr! For 16 months. You today, everybody, can become BMR pirates. That's right. Join today. Join the many, join the few, depending on your point of view. That's awesome. Thank you. Back at our conference, we had Speaking with a Pirate Day on Friday. It was National Speaking with a Pirate Day last Friday. That was kind of fun. The super chat is open. A great way to help support what we all do around here. Crossroads, Cryptid Crossroads, a member for 6 months. Larry Sharp, 6 months. Cryptid Crossroads, 1 month. That is awesome. Thanks, all you guys. Love you. Thanks for coming on in for the show tonight. I'm not going to waste any more time. We have a fantastic guest, Thomas Sewid. He's going to come on. We're going to talk a little Sasquatch from his from Washington State. Did some research in British Columbia. Miranda Crew, a member for 6 months as well. T-Bone, we have 5 new pirates. Thank you to T-Bone. Thank you so much, T-Bone, for that. You rock and roll. You all rock and roll. T-Bone, a great supporter of the program, the show. Thank you, T-Bone. Hi, Amy Crew. Hello to everybody. So with that being said, cool hand, I'm going to bring up the lovely Brandy.
Hey.
Hey, Brandy.
Hey. Arr.
Arr, matey. Well, thanks for popping on in.
Oh, it's no problem. It's no problem. You know, it really, Chris and I have been fighting whatever it is. And yesterday I felt horrible, and today she feels horrible, and but hey.
But hey, it is what it is. You know, I've not gotten everything. I feel a little under the weather. My eyes have been burning.
Yes.
A little bit. I don't know if it was from the dust in Missouri or what, but man, my eyes have been burning for the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And I even put
Harvest
in new
season.
contacts,
Yeah. Harvest
season. We were driving through all of that.
Yes.
So yeah, that was something. But this is not a conference show, everybody. I do want to drop a couple quick mentions. Thanks to everybody. We sold a bunch of tickets for this event that we did, which was very successful. But I got to hand it to our subscribers across the board, Brandy, for all of our channels, because I must tell you, I've never been to a conference where a lot, and I mean a lot of you were there. We met a lot of our followers and people that subscribe. It was so welcoming to meet y'all for the first time. And thank you so much. You know who you are, who gave us all the gifts. I've gotten so many. I had to get another bag, Brandy, to take home the gifts from these beautiful people. I was so humbled. So yeah, so we'll probably do a recap of the show at a later date. Not today, because I had Thomas scheduled, and we're not going to waste time and talk about that. But Brandy, any quick thoughts before we bring up Mr. Thomas?
It was nice to do all of that, but I'm glad to be home and back to the regularly scheduled programming.
Me too. One thing that I am extremely happy with is we don't have to promote any more of the Crossing Realms Conference for a while yet. We've been doing it for over a year, folks, and we need a break from all that, right?
Exactly. We're done with it.
We're done with all that. So if I'd say hi to you in the chat room, love you all. Thanks for coming in. I'm going to bring up our guest, Mr. Thomas Sewid. Did I say your last name right, Thomas?
Sewid, like squid.
Sewid, thank you. Thanks for coming on and taking your time out of the day, my friend.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on.
Yeah, not a problem. We're going to get right into it. Before we get started, a lot of people may not be familiar with you, Thomas. So why don't you give us a little background about yourself, and we'll kick off the show that way.
Sure. First off, to everyone listening, Kelakasla, greetings in my language of Kwakwala from the Kwakwakiwak people of northern Vancouver Island, British Columbia, where I was born and raised and lived most of my life. I'm here in Forks, Washington now. 18 months ago, I had to retire from 45 years of being a commercial fisherman, hunting guide, bushman, because my leg gave out, acts up quite a bit. But anyway, I was offered a job to be the manager of SasquatchTheLegend.com, which is North America's largest Sasquatch museum and store here in Forks, Washington. Fitting place. I got numerous native designs that I've created on everything from t-shirts, coffee mugs, tumblers, shower curtains, bath mats, and people follow me on different podcasts, video casts, my Facebook group, Sasquatch Island, my YouTube channel, Sasquatch Island, and then hearing me at conferences that I'll be attending one this coming weekend in Washington State performing. But I'm bringing my knowledge of the bush, I lived out there for decades. Grizzly bear hunting guide for over 20 years, coastal British Columbia. And I used to not like Christmas or humans back in the early 90s. And so I used to go watch logging camps during the winter shutdown all by myself in the middle of Timbuk nowhere out in the British Columbia coast. And just to get away from everything. And I remember one time being in a second story of a barge logging camp on a treadmill exercising. I looked out the window and there was a black bear on the beach at low tide. So I just looked, and, oh, black bear. All of a sudden, I'm like, wait a minute. It's first week of January. There's a foot and a half of snow on the ground. There's no black bears awake. I looked again, and the black bear stood up on two legs, walked maybe 10 or 15 paces, squatted down, and started digging in the sand at low tide. And I ran to the end of the barge camp, which got me closer to the Sasquatch on the beach. And I grabbed my binoculars, which, as a grizzly bear hunting guide, they're, Zeiss binoculars worth back then over $1,000 and very powerful. So I picked them up and looked out the window and I could see them smashing shellfish together, clams, and eating the meat. And it was pretty neat. I watched him for, over 20 minutes, I guess. And he got up full belly, turned, walked to the bush and disappeared into the forest. And that's when it dawned on me. I'm like, oh, shoot. I had my camera in my bedroom. I should have taken a
Oh,
picture.
shoot.
But to me, seeing Sasquatches, back then, it was no big deal. It's just a Sasquatch because my tribe, the Kwakwaka'wakw people, the highest ranked crest of our nation is the Chonakwa. And there's one of the renditions of a female Sasquatch. And the Chonakwa is like having a Rolex or a Mercedes Benz when we wear it, jewelry, or bring it to life in dance and song in our great potlatch ceremonies in our ceremonial big houses with all the pillars and beams carved of crest figures from the tribe and fire in the middle of the floor going up to a smoke hole. You're in like a spiritual realm. And right from childhood, I would see the masks of Chonakwa, the Sasquatch, come to life in dance and song in those ceremonial potlatches. And so our whole upbringing was right from our earliest memory. It was Sasquatch. Even as a kid, we were told, Tommy, you behave yourself. Chonakwa, the Sasquatch, is watching children. She's not allowed to touch them, but if they misbehave, act up, don't eat their food, get into fights, steal, temper tantrums, when you go to sleep, Chonakwa is going to come with big hairy arm and reach into where you're sleeping and grab you, rub spruce sap from the spruce tree like syrup in your eyes so you can't open them and you're blind. And she's going to throw you in the basket on her back, or she might have a sack that she's going to shove the misbehaving children in. And when the Sasquatch runs into the forest, up a mountain to her invisible home, that's why we can't find Sasquatch Chonakwa. That's where she boils the bad children and eats them. So you behave yourself. Chonakwa is always watching. So my entire life, it's been around me. And then at roughly 12 years old, Dad and I were driving down the Vancouver Island North Highway at night. And as we come down this hill where it turns to the right, and there's a metal barrier on the opposite side of the road with a cement waste basket or waste can for bear proof and for garbage, we thought we saw a hippie sitting on there, a human. Well, all of a sudden it put its left arm down and it sprung and jumped. And you could see the hair hanging down its body all over, soles of its feet. And it disappeared down the bank and into the darkness. And Dad sort of swerved and goes, holy, we just saw a Sasquatch in Chonakwa. And I always remembered how big it was and how hairy it was. And it kind of, I guess you could say, tweaked my curiosity to learn more. Because a few months later, I was in a movie theater and Leonard Nimoy, Spock, was narrating Mysteries of the Unsolved or something, a show about Loch Ness Monster, UFOs, and Sasquatch, Bigfoot. And
Right.
that's when I saw Patty for the first time.
Yeah.
Bob Gimlin, Roger Patterson's film. And I'm like, damn, that's what me and Dad saw. Looked just like that. So that really tweaked my curiosity. And then being a commercial fisherman and an Indian, traveling the British Columbia coast every summer as a salmon seine crewman, we'd end up in communities like Clem 2 and Bella Bella, elsewhere where you can only get to the native community by boat or airplane, float plane, we'd be at the dock and you'd be talking to people that live there. And I was always Tommy 10,000 questions. What do you know about Sasquatch, Bigfoot? Oh, I'll tell you. And I'd hear all these stories and I hear these names from other tribes like Books and Hawakwas and Gogi, and the list goes on. But I was my whole teenage life and 20s, I'm interacting with people that are seeing Sasquatch and just accepting it as members of the other tribe, the humans of the night, the ones we see from time to time, the one we hear talking or breaking branches or throwing things at us when we're on the shellfish beach where they want to harvest or a fishing area where they want to harvest. They let us know respectfully, okay, you've had your turn harvesting. It's our turn now. And we were taught that at a young age, that you always respect the Sasquatch. You never disrespect them, and you never ever think of harming them or hunting them, killing them. And that's why when I got invited, or actually I emailed Wes Germer, Sasquatch Chronicles in 2015, because my wife, Peggy, in Kent, Washington, when I came to visit her, I was arguing with Cliff Barrickman and Bobo and Moneymaker on TV. I'm like, you boneheads don't know bugger all about Sasquatch. You go tree knocking. How would you like it if I went to your house and started knocking on your door and opened it up and said, turn around, get out of here. I'm here. That's what tree knocking is. Sasquatch telling you, stop, human, turn around, go back where you came from. I don't want you here. I'm here
It's
right now.
a
I'm here with my family.
yeah. It's kind of like their way of saying, as you just described, get out. It's not they're not being friendly. It's like, hey, you walked in my home and you're not invited, correct?
Yeah. Yeah, they're very respectful. Sasquatches, it's one of the reasons they leave us alone. They know we have nothing good to give them, and we're the hairless bipedal destroyers of the environment. That's why they don't come sit with us at our fires and have a s'more. They don't want anything to do with us, and just respectfully turning and disappearing. That's what they're doing, and they have a lot to teach us as well, Sasquatch.
Amongst the First Nations, then I would imagine, because I know, there's just two sides to the coin. There's your flesh and blood side. There's the spiritual side of Sasquatch. It sounds to me, and I'm not going to put words in your mouth, but so it's revered as the spiritual figure in your community.
Oh, absolutely. Said to have supernatural powers, but on a personal level, I've encountered Sasquatch within 15 feet 2 times. I've been around them within 30 feet 4 times. And I know they've been around me over 30 times. Could hear them, smell them, see them from time to time because I used to go to bush for months on end. And, to me, I've never had a supernatural encounter. I've never seen them cloak. I've never seen them turn into an orb. Never seen them fly a UFO. They've never mind spoke with me. So other Indian tribes that believe in it, I respect them for that. Their Sabe or whatever they call it might have some supernatural powers, but the ones that I'm come across in coastal British Columbia, here in Washington State once, and Omaha Indian Reserve in Nebraska. That's why I'm a devout critterist. They've never done anything supernatural.
So the ones that you saw, they were a physical being.
Oh yeah, they're just big hairy Indians. They're humans of the night. And while we're sleeping and snoring in our beds, they're active. And if you want to find a Sasquatch, like my dining room table behind it is another table, probably close to $6,000 worth of electronic gear. A lot of it is infrared, night vision stuff, parabolic listening devices. So you have to go out at night if you really want to get close to them, or you have to play bush chess and know where they're going to be at daytime. Here on the coast, it's easy. Big low tide, certain time of the year, they're going to be out there for shellfish or spawning smelt or spawning herring that come into the shallows ankle deep. So it all depends on where the highest concentration of seasonal food is. That's where you got to go, hopefully, to get that close encounter of the hairy kind.
Okay. You mentioned earlier about you don't get any mind speak or spoke with those or communicated, and you mentioned the tree knocks. Very interesting. We could talk about that for a moment, but I got to ask you, outside the tree knocks, a lot of folks, they'll present things, they'll come on a show with these X structures, all of these different, you know, I don't know, huts that are built in the woods that they suggest is built by Sasquatch. Now, what is your take on all that? Let's go with the X structure. Is that built by the Sasquatch? Is that if so, what's the purpose behind that?
Trees die, they rot, they fall. Wind
Okay.
blows, trees fall. I've seen some amazing things in the forest in my time living out there. Wind gust with 60 knot winds, and all of a sudden a downdraft comes and it looks like a tornado hit the area.
Okay.
And, it's some of them, absolutely. Like X ones, I tell people don't waste your time with X's and
Okay.
horizontals. They're probably more than likely 99.9% natural. But the ones you come across where it's a teepee structure, a lean-to structure, number one, if you're a man, don't go near them because there's probably a Sasquatch watching you. And he's probably a male, a scout or a harvester, a hunter. And all of a sudden he sees a man go into a teepee structure or an earth structure, we call them, where it looks like a wigwam. Well, what that is a Sasquatch female has been in there with female blood, menstruating or birthing. So when you study the anthropological path of the local Indian tribes in Sasquatch Island, aka North America, and you're standing on it, that's what Sasquatch Island is. When you study the Indian culture, their anthropological record, every tribe, female blood, menstruating and birthing was taboo. If a man was around it, it could ruin his chances of getting close and hunting game again. And every tribe was like that. Even me, when I was a grizzly bear hunting guide, I remember one time flying home on a float plane and going to my girlfriend's, and she's like, "Oh, you might not want to come in. It's my monthly." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks for telling me. See you. I'm going to grab a hotel room." Because there was no way I was going to be near her when she was menstruating because that might taboo me and I won't get close to my bears. And if I do, the bear might end up taking me and I become a steaming turd in the forest the next day. So, that being said, the Sasquatches are no different than any other Indian tribe. We just call them the other tribe. So, if the females are in blood time, they're going to go have a structure so that when that male's out there hunting, harvesting, on a walkabout, and all of a sudden he sees that teepee structure. Oh, geez, windage. I better go upwind and around it because there's no way I'm going near that woman, that female. And that's what those structures are. So when I see these guys on YouTube and social media going in there and they're sitting in there, and I'm just like, dude, you're so stupid. Don't be doing that. Because if you're a Sasquatch investigator and a Sasquatch is watching you, because they're always watching, and especially if you're around a structure, well, the next time you go out, they know you smell. They're going to go, stay away from that guy. He's that fool that went into the birthing hut. Oh, geez, that guy's taboo. Yeah, let's get away from him.
Really?
You'll
Okay.
never see a Sasquatch again.
So they sense us, you mentioned, they smell the human being. They can sense our presence well before we even get into the woods. You buy into that theory?
Sasquatches, a clan unit is like an atom. The nucleus of the atom, the clan, is your old, sick, female, young. Around them, the electrons and protons are your harvesters and scouts. They're like a military unit. As soon as you come close, tree knock, it will be repeated right to the other side of the electron protons and through the nucleus. So the clan knows, stand by the next body movement because they don't want to make noise. And, all Indians had different hand signals and body postures for communicating so they don't make noise. So do the Sasquatch. The next communique to that clan might be evacuation, exit 1, go to rally point 1. The electron protons, the scouts break off and try to get the human, the perceived threat, away from that atom, the nucleus of the family clan. That's why it's so hard to come across young, female, and elderly Sasquatches.
Wow. Brandy?
I'm just thinking, I mean, honestly, what during that time of the month for the females, let's just go there. But let's go to such as it's their prime time breeding of the month. Um, is there a difference in the dynamics of the clan per se? I mean, will it cause fights, or is there a designated, should I say, like a husband companion type figure that plays the role, and nobody bothers it? I was just wondering about that.
So, first off, I always teach people, think like a Sasquatch. Just think like you think. So everything you do, everything you eat, how you act socially, culturally, uh, etiquette, so too do the Sasquatch. As the Omaha tribes members taught me, Sitonga, the keeper of the medicine, their Sasquatch has laws, very strict laws. Then they teach me, and then they end it with Sitonga, the Sasquatch, has very strict laws. And that's what they're like. So with mating wise, you know, we're the only species on this planet that will fornicate just for the act of pleasure. And every other critter has a hierarchy. Wolf pack, for example, only the alpha male and female will copulate and have pups. And other pack animals are like that as well. Birds, different things have, ravens have a mate for life. So do bald eagles, apparently. So with the Sasquatch, they do have to follow bush code. So we have divorce for a reason. The female looks for another man because her man isn't manly enough, not doing what she expects and wants and needs to satisfy her. The man leaves because the woman's not satisfying him. And and then the animal kingdom, it's all about the genetic code. You have to spread your seed, never mating within your clan, your pack, because that weakens your species. So that's why when we see the two videos that are out there of trumping Sasquatches walking through the high mountains, ice fields, rocks, no trees, what that big Sasquatch is doing is probably got ousted by dad. Okay, you're big enough now. It's time for you to go on your own. Yeah, okay, go look for a mate. Well, all of a sudden he comes across a A-frame structure, a tree break. Oh, I better watch for that smell. I'm in some other Sasquatch's territory. And as he's watching and looking, oh, you got a cute looking female. I better go challenge him. And then we hear the recordings on YouTube and audio recordings of mass vocalization of two Sasquatches or more. What that is like grizzly bears and black bears. Instead of just going to fight and getting wounded or killed, or getting wounded enough that you will die or not be able to harvest, lose an eye, they'll fluff charge and posture and roar and tear the earth up. Well, that's what those Sasquatches are doing too. And hopefully one just goes, okay, I can't take his mate. He's too tough. I'm going to leave, go look for somewhere else. Or he goes to battle, where we hear the odd report of two Sasquatches, even three, fighting. And all of a sudden, the husband of the female Sasquatch of that territory gets toppled. That's bush nature, God, the creator's code. You have to adhere to that. So now that Sasquatch, who used to have a wife and children and a family clan, is now kicked out of the territory, can't be around there. So he goes out and becomes a solitary, or he finds another mate or topples another male and takes that clan. It's bush code. Or he does like some of us humans do when we get divorced, have to go to court to see our kids, got to pay all our paycheck to alimony, get our garnishes, bank accounts, and so forth. I've been through it. And I was a hair away from snapping and going into rage and becoming a rogue. And a rogue is the psychotic hunter killer cannibal Sasquatch that
Okay,
has gone host.
you read my mind, Thomas. I was going to ask you about the rogues. So again, you're well ahead
I'm
of me.
speaking you.
Yeah, yeah, we've got a connection right now, right? So, yeah, go on about the rogues because I heard it was told to me, suggested to me that when we hear about these stories about human beings being accosted and threatened, it's typically not from the family, the happy family of the Sasquatch clan, but it's from one of these rogues who is thrown out of the clan. So those are probably, I'm assuming, I'll let you answer, the ones that the human beings out looking or camping should be more aware of, leery of.
Well, David Paulides is missing 411. David's I know him well, but
Sure.
he's made a career out of the missing ones. Over 27,000 in just the U.S. parks alone. Canada, we have a highway called the Highway of Tears. They suspect psychotic serial killer human is causing the missing people on that Highway of Tears in British Columbia. But I've spoken to enough people to know that some of the families know it was the Sasquatches that got their loved one. So why would they do that? Well, number one, humans are the easiest animal to harvest. They're stupid. When you get hunting skills and you can blend into the forest, use windids like me, you can get close to humans without them even knowing you're there. And, with the Sasquatch, if they're going to hunt something, well, a human mushroom picker, hitchhiker, hiker, they're easy pickings. But that's why they're always watching. They see someone walking with camo, rifle, knife, pistol on their side in the US, they're not going to attack that one. They know it's not in their best interest. They could get killed or injured. But that person wearing REI mountain equipment and Columbia colorful puffy jackets and backpacks and bear bells and fancy hats with a sports team name on it, well, those are easy picking.
Mm-hmm.
Sasquatch is like eating beans, human beans, and because they're easy to harvest. And Bush Code, going back to that again, always capitalize on the easiest food source that you can get. And we look at the native Indian tribes of North America pre-contact. Some of them practice cannibalism, even in Central America, South America, Europe, Asia, Australia. Cannibal Aryan Jaya, they're still chawing on humans down there, back and forth cannibalism. So for Indian tribes to call their Sasquatch in their Indian name, then after contact, the newcomers, they asked, what does your name mean for Sasquatch? Well, translating to English, it means cannibal from the mountain. Another tribe, cannibal from the forest. Another tribe, the big hairy cannibals. My tribe, some say the Chonocha is a cannibal. Well, if Indian tribes are using cannibal in how they name their Sasquatch that they're sharing territory with, well, then they know exactly what a Sasquatch is. Only a species that eats its own can be termed a cannibal.
Mm. So there's Sasquatch, some of these rogues, the cannibalized one, they've been known to eat human beings.
What was that?
Have they these cannibalistic Sasquatch who we're speaking of outside of themselves, each other? Have they been known that you know of to eat human beings?
Oh yeah, there's all kinds of reports about them eating humans. Well, look at
Well,
the picture on the wall behind that shoulder. That picture there is a Sasquatch reaching out, grabbing a native girl in a cedar bark clothing of like tradition what we used to wear, and on the Sasquatch's back is a basket where she's stuffing a young boy into it. So my tribe speaks of it. Other tribes speak of it. And most of the Indian tribes know got to be wary of Sasquatches in some areas. And then the missing people that are out there, some of them being taken by them. But it's chances of running into a rogue Sasquatch. I've run into one in my entire decades out in bush, and I did what I was taught: beat feet and get the heck out of there as fast as you can.
somebody in the chat, really quickly, Verox in the chat room asked a question, really, in some same subject matter. Thomas, do you feel that Sasquatch eats their dead?
Good question.
No, it's number one, it's you're gonna pass the disease on.
Okay.
And so if it died of a disease, you're gonna absorb that. And they wouldn't do that. And because they're, to me, they're just big hairy humans. You know, I come from the Kwakwaka'wakw tribe. I belong to the Hamatsa society. And Hamatsa translates to meaning human, uh, eating humans,
Okay.
cannibal society. And did we do it? Yeah, we did it ceremonially pre-contact, and it was more of an intimidation for our enemies than anything. But if my tribe, did they practice it gastatory, meaning they had to do it for sustenance? I think so, because of the ice ages and everything. British Columbia, my tribal territories, was a hostile environment 4,000 years ago and beyond. And so, other people like Inuit up north, up even right until the 1940s, one of the Inuit clans, they were starving and they resorted to eating their people. So Sasquatch eating their dead? No. Sasquatch bury their dead. In some
Okay.
places in central United States, Indian tribes have told me they will dig like a cave in a bank somewhere, side hill. And that's where they winter because it's so harsh in the interior. Here on the Hoh River on the Olympic Peninsula, we found two of those caves in a heavy area of elk along the Hoh River. And it's glacial alluvial till, basically gravel, sand, compressed bank. And we found two caves that Sasquatches had dug, and one of them had a round killer boulder in it that they picked up from the edge of the river that sat inside the cave. So when they're in there out of the elements, because it gets pretty ugly winds and rain here and cold, if an elk herd comes right below them, 85 feet, they just grab that round stone, and what we can do with a 22 single shot rifle, a Sasquatch can do with a rock. Stove in the side of the head of the elk or its rib cage so he can jump on it, break the neck. You got food for a couple of weeks.
Fascinating stuff. Brandon, I'm learning some things I really didn't know before. Very interesting.
Well, there's a lot of things that I'm absolutely 100% in agreement with. Especially when you started off in the beginning and you were saying that even in your encounters and your experiences that you've not had I hate to use this word, but you haven't had any of the woo side of things happening during your encounters, which I didn't with mine either. And I fully believe that these people are having these encounters and having those experiences. But I'm just telling you what I experienced, and it wasn't any of that. But I mean, a lot of the things like burying the dead. I mean, I didn't know what they were doing because I didn't know, because we can't ever find any remnants, any bones left over or anything like that. So it's kind of reinforcing what I thought is they were burying them, and they're burying them deep. So, we will not be able to find them. And it's just, I agree with a lot of things you're saying, Thomas. It's just awesome to hear somebody actually come along my line of thinking. It's just these things are happening, maybe not to us, they're happening. And now I know what they're doing with the dead, because I was wondering why we couldn't find them.
Well, I can't name the tribal territory. I've sworn to secrecy on it, but this one central U.S. tribe, they know that they'll dig those caves for the winter because it gets cold east of the coastal mountain ranges in the interior of
Sure.
North America,
Sure.
and brutally cold. So they'll go in there and they don't hibernate, they'll tuper, and they'll bring in the corn and everything. And, that's why we don't very seldom find Sasquatch tracks in snow, because they're hunkered down. And when one of their clanmates die, they'll back out of the cave and cave it in. And that's where the dead's buried. So I asked the tribe member, what happens if all of a sudden they start pushing a road through along that bank area or urban sprawl? Oh, they dig up the remains and move them somewhere else and rebury them. So in Vancouver Island, coastal British Columbia, it's the highest concentration of limestone karst in the world. basically limestone in a rainforest. You get Swiss cheese under your feet. Massive cave structures all over the place, especially northern Vancouver Island. One of the tribes told me that back in the day, early 1900s, the father went hunting and he broke his leg and it was compound broken. And he was crawling and pushing with his gun and he was started crying and whimpering and I'm going to die. My 6 kids are going to, what's going to happen to them? My wife. And all of a sudden he looked up and there was a big hawkless, big Sasquatch walking around him, motioned for him to push the gun away, which he did. Sasquatch went, looked at his leg, and then grabbed him, hung him on his shoulder, turned around, bent down so he can grab his rifle, because now trust is made, a bond of trust. And he started walking the man back to the urban edge. But as they were walking, he veered up, went up to a hillside, and he put the man down with his gun. And the Sasquatch pushed this big boulder. And there on the ground was the entryway into a limestone cave structure. The Sasquatch went behind some bushes, dug around, and come out with a woven 3-strand cedar bark rope. So our people make 3-strand cedar bark rope to this day from the bark of the cedar tree. Lowered the rope into that hole, tied it around a tree. That's intelligence, knowing knots, weaving, and then grabs the man, puts him on his shoulders, piggyback, and the Sasquatch crawls down the rope. And as they're hanging there, swinging around, he could see cocoons of dead Sasquatches wrapped in cedar bark fibers, ropes. Like my tribe and other tribes on the coast laid their people to rest in caves and catacombs. Same way. And then the Sasquatch crawled out, put the man down, pulled the rope out, buried it with leaves and branches, pushed the boulder back in place, grabbed the man on his shoulder and walked out to the edge of the railway line, put him down, walked back up the bank, squatted down, and all of a sudden, when the train came, they stopped for the injured Indian with his rifle and broken leg, and the native guy looked, and the Sasquatch was gone, the Howapus. My sister, when she was getting this report from this 80-year-old woman, "Oh, Louise, here, I'll show you." And she reached up on a shelf and brought down a shoebox, opened it up. My dad cut a piece of the 3-strand rope to show us. Here it is. She's dead now. I'm trying to track down that 3-strand rope for our museum. If I ever find it, I doubt it, but I'll make a replica out of it. But my sister said, "Tom, it wasn't like our cedar bark, how we take all of the outside husk off and just have the copper inner bark. This one still had outside husk on it. It was crudely manufactured. My sister, she can weave cedar bark to a certain extent, but it's an amazing story." And then another one from, I can't name the tribe, people will figure out the area. There's an island that you look at and it's got old growth on top of it that never logged. In British Columbia, Washington State, the loggers would start at the salt water line, go up the mountain, over the mountain, across the river, up the next mountain. They just clear cut everything. Well, this island is all around it is second growth timber because it's been logged, except for the top of this island that still has giant old growth. And I used to look at it quite a bit when I was in the area. But the story goes, the loggers came and they said to the Indians in the village, "We need to talk to someone who knows about the Sasquatches." So the 3 brothers went down there and they went out there the next day with their commercial fish boat and they walked up and the loggers had said that they were cutting the trees down and all of a sudden they found a cave and inside were partially mummified cocoons of fetal position wrapped up in bark fiber ropes, dead giants. So the next day, loggers pulled out of there, got scared. They knew what it was. And the managers went up the next day morning, and the cave entry was all blocked by broken trees and all kinds of stuff, rocks. So that's when they went to the Indians, and the 3 brothers went up there, said, you're not going to log up here. It's sacred ground." And to this day, the logging companies, the forestry of British Columbia of that region adheres the law. They'll never be logging up there. That's a burial ground of the Sasquatches. And I've heard that from other tribes as well. Remember what Sasquatch teaches us. It's all about respect. So we respect Sasquatch by never going anywhere near their burial areas. And, if you do come across one, get the hell out of there. Don't do anything.
You know, you talk about Sasquatch as the peoples in the tribe. There's not any connection to actually having any human DNA, is there? I mean, you wouldn't consider Sasquatch a human being, correct? More of an, and I hate to say an animal either. So, how would you, in describing a Sasquatch, you're not going to call it human, you're not going to call it an animal. So, what would be the proper term we're trying to tell somebody what you think it is? It's makeup, right? I mean, Brandy's a human, Thomas, you're a human, a bear is a bear, it's an animal. But a Sasquatch is like what exactly then?
The original human. Smelly armpit. How come you got smell in there when you don't shower? You go to your doctor. What's he going to tell you? Oh, that's from evolution. We used to have scent glands, and when we don't bathe, that's why we get stinky in our armpits. BO, body odor. And there's the remnants of scent glands. But back in evolution, we were able to excrete a stench like some primates do when they feel threatened or intimidated or afraid. Well, Sasquatches still have that ability. So when you go to a beach and you're a thoroughbred Indian like me, who has that many chest hairs, that many armpit hairs, and a wife who accused me 18 years ago when we got together that I shaved my legs because I got no hair there. I said, no, honey, I'm a thoroughbred Indian. We don't have hair. I'll never have a beard. I could never grow a biker beard or anything because I'm a thoroughbred Indian. Sasquatch, when I go to a beach in a city, I'm just like, oh, God, look at that 350-pound man. He's got hair all over his body. Oh, gross. I even remember seeing Robin Williams one time on stage and TV, and you could see under his sleeve it was just Sasquatch type hair. I'm like, oh, gross. Because that's just my upbringing. And, body hair to me is kind of taboo to look at. But so Sasquatches, what happened? We come from them because an ancestor Sasquatch clicked rocks together. Oh, look, fire. Hey, we have laws, very strict laws. We don't use fire. Oh, but I like it. And all of a sudden, a few more Sasquatches liked it. And all of a sudden, they're like, oh, I know. Let's build a structure so we can retain the heat. And oh, well, I like my meat and my fish cooked now and my vegetables cooked. Well, now I got to make tools, chipping rocks. And I'm jealous of that neighboring clan. They keep taking my deer. They're my deer, not his, because hate, animosity, greed starts kicking in because they're living a different path of existence instead of what Sasquatch adheres to, the old ancient code of not having warfare, not having weapons, not having tools, not having fire, not having clothing, not having permanent structures. Sasquatch is in harmony with nature and the environment that the creator, Ekame, and God, and who is God, made for us. Except we went down the path, evolved from a hairy, big Sasquatch to become smaller and lose our body hair, lose our ridges, our conical head, our big jaws, our nocturnal vision. And if we watch The Gods Must Be Crazy, 1980s comedy from South Africa, and how a Coke bottle thrown out of an airplane landing in the desert, and a little bushman brings it to his clan and says, look, the gods gave us a gift. Oh, look, we can hold water in it. We can blow on it and make music. We can roll the grain and crush it. We can do this with it. We can do break nuts with it. And then all of a sudden the kids start fighting over it. And one of the girls grabs it and bonks her sister on the head with it. Because an empty Coke bottle, a modern tool, has now come into the clan that was in harmony with nature and the environment, equivalent to the Sasquatches. All of a sudden the father goes, the gods must be crazy to give this. I got to bring it to the edge of the world and give it back to them because it's brought such terribleness, anger, hate, warfare into my clan. So that's why Sasquatches don't have tools, fire use, clothing, permanent shelters, because they're in harmony and balance. So I always say Sasquatch shamanism, they have so much to teach us. All we have to reflect upon is go to YouTube and type in Indian paddles into city to see the pollution. And you'll see a 1970s commercial. I remember as a kid watching on the one channel we had on the Indian Reserve. And it was a buckskin Indian paddling a birch bark canoe down a river. And he sees the effluent from the mills. He sees the dead fish. He sees the smokestacks putting pollution out. He sees the garbage dump. And even though the Indian was actually an Italian actor, but he looked like a stoic Indian in buckskin and birch bark canoe. And at the end of the 30-second commercial, there's vehicles on a freeway buzzing back and forth, and someone throws out of a white car a bag of fast food garbage at his feet, and a tear goes down his eye at that Indian. What it did was it kick-started Greenpeace and the environmental green movement, and we've lost our way since. And we're still losing our way. We have to look at Sasquatch, and we have to say, well, there's the reason why government doesn't want to confirm the existence of Sasquatch, because number one, they either know it is a human, just an original human, and all of a sudden, if we do say, oh yeah, we did get a couple carcass bodies here and there, and we have thermal vision from our military cameras and helicopters showing Sasquatch families and so forth. The one was released last year that I saw 4 years ago when it first got recorded of that Sasquatch running, looking at that helicopter. And all of a sudden, after 20 seconds, it goes to snow. I looked at the guy who gave me that video and I said, that Sasquatch died after that. He goes, yeah, Tom. And you got to remember, the Gatling gun was created for one reason and one reason only. Mm-hmm. To mow down Indians so ranching and cities and farmland could be created. Well, those Gatling guns that are more modern in helicopters are mowing down Sasquatches. And that's why we're seeing an influx of urban edge encounters and sightings of Sasquatch. I personally think it's very dangerous out here when the tourists aren't here in the Olympic Peninsula and elsewhere in North America for Sasquatches. Because once they're confirmed to exist, you got to remember, in U.S., you have 2 indigenous recognized tribes, the Inuit in Alaska North, the North American Indians. And they cost the U.S. government billions. And then in Canada, we have 3 recognized indigenous people. We have the First Nations, which I am, the Inuit up north, and 5 years ago, what you call Cherokees, the mixed blood, we call Métis, they got their indigenous recognition and $1 billion plus. We indigenous tribes in North America cost billions upon billions of dollars. In Canada, we Indians are so strong and powerful. We can shut down your LNG plant. We can shut down your forestry, your mining, your fracking, your logging, your urban sprawl. We are powerful. Now, all of a sudden, the existence of another indigenous tribe. So the U.S. has to have a 3rd one called Sasquatch. Canada is going to have the 4th one. And you're a rancher that owns a ranch that your great-grandpappy created when he came across in the wagon train over 150 years ago. And you want to go mow down 30 hectares of your timber so you can grow alfalfa to put in jumbo jets to fly to the rich Saudis for their Arabian horses? Nuh-uh, ain't happening. You're going to have to do a Sasquatch environmental assessment, which is going to cost you thousands of dollars, and you probably will not get green lighted to cut down those trees in your ranch, your private property, build that residential neighborhood, frack, mine. So the environmentalists will come in and they'll do like they did with everything else, screw it right up. Yeah. And what we know in the Pacific Northwest with Washington and British Columbia, when the environmentalists coined the endangered spotted owl and marbled murrelet, 2 birds took away hundreds of millions of hectares of forest land from logging and other mining and other industrial things. Can you imagine when the conclusive proof of the existence of Sasquatch comes out? Well, it's going to affect the gross domestic product. Right. Industries are going to cave in. logging, mining, fracking. And that's why the government is doing everything that's in power to ensure that the recognition of Sasquatch never happens, because more than likely it's a human. And if it's not, and it proves evolution is chiseled in stone, it is the way, the only way of existence for our species, well, then the oldest industry
Really
in the world,
quickly, Thomas, this has been a
religion,
great.
caves in.
I hate to cut you off. We'll continue going. I just want to say thank you so much. Everybody in the chat room is loving this show. I'm learning a lot of new things. I'm loving this show. I can tell Brandy is. So yeah, just continue on. I got a couple things to bring up. With that, Brandy, give me about 35 seconds. Stop. Continue on.
He's just telling you, hey, I gotta go for a second and just continue on. He could have just done it. It would have been just going on. Forget him. Go ahead,
So we're
Thomas.
still recording?
Yeah, we're still live. Go ahead, hun.
Oh, okay, yeah. So yes, that's why I call it Sasquatch shamanism. We got to look at them, and because we live in a world right now where, because an ancestor clicked rocks, rubbed the bow drill, made fire, evolved to what we are, where we have Trump and Putin and others with their fingers above nuclear buttons, ready to destroy this entire planet and our species. And Sasquatches know that fire is not good. And how they figured that out, I don't know. But you compare the two bipedal species of North America, Sasquatch Island, and that's why I lived in bush so much, because in Desert Storm, when it erupted, day later I got dropped off in bush, and I just went and lived the bush existence for over 9 years. I'd come out to cash checks and party and celebrate family functions, but I did as much as I could to live and stay in bush. If it wasn't commercial fishing, I was out hunting guiding. I was out sports fish guiding. I was trapping even one year, and just living out there, watching logging camps by myself, because I found harmony and balance, and I still do. The only reason I'm here in the cities is because of that ring, Peggy. If she ever pointed to the door and told me to get out and give the ring back, I'd go live like a Sasquatch again. And I used to love those days, being out there for months, weeks on end, no human interaction. Only thing I didn't like was running out of cigarettes and coffee.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I've always had kind of this theory about evolution of humans, and I want to say that Sasquatch may be our missing link. We're always talking about the missing link throughout history, and they may be it. It's like when we were going straight, they decided they were going to take a hard left, and they just kind of jumped out and just continued on with the way they have evolved and the way that we have evolved.
See, being an Indian and always been interested in history. I used to be teased when I was a young boy, called Dilton Doyle, because I had big black frame glasses and I always had my head in the book. And I just, right into my young 20s, I was picked on because I always wanted to seek a higher level of understanding. With Sasquatch, I've done that same path, and interviewing other Indian tribe members and asking those questions that most people will never ask. Did your shamans interact or still interact with Sasquatch? Oh, yeah. There's people in your tribe go out and disappear for weeks, days on end, and interact with your local. Oh, yeah. Even right here on the peninsula, I know someone who used to disappear quite a bit in his younger days. I did. He knew they're out there. So I don't look at them as anything but the original human. They think like us. They have songs, they have dance, they have culture, they have humming, you name it. They eat what we would eat if we're out there. Elk, deer, bear, fish, shellfish, you name it. And with my understanding of them, they know that we have nothing good to gain them. And that's why they don't come near us. And with me, with the Sasquatch, we look at them and we have to, instead of looking at it in a superior, high on a soapbox type of mentality, I teach people they're the superior bipedal of the North America. I said, you have to look at yourself as not regressing back to an existence of being in harmony and balance of nature. You have to look at it as progressing back to what our species once was, and Sasquatch, which is our species, still is. We have to get in tune with things. There's, out here on the Olympic Peninsula, it's you see logging trucks quite a bit. Yeah, it's still a big industry, but you see well over a dozen rusty closed sawmills. Why? Because they exterminated all the old growth. And now they automated it. Now they're just harvesting these smaller trees. And the damage that logging has caused, Canada, US, salmon rivers that were loaded like Alaska's. You could just go to social media, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, and see the abundance of salmon that are in the rivers up in Alaska. And why is that? Because you can fly rivers in Bristol Bay, and it looked like it did 100,000 years ago. There's no clear cuts, urban sprawl. You look at that state just went to a civil war over the Pebble Mine proposal because it would have destroyed so many salmon rivers in the breeding lake for the young. So Sasquatch has so much to teach us. And the best way to understand Sasquatch is do something most people don't do that aren't Indian. Go knock on the doors of the Indians where you live. Get to know them. Learn things like studying their anthropological seasonal migration. They were here for this elk. They were over here for the buffalo. They were here for the trout spawning in the stream or the salmon. And that's what the Sasquatches are still doing. Seasonal migration. They have their clan territories. They've been there since the dawn of creation. Like my tribe has been in the Mamliach tribal territories of the Kwakwaka'wakw Nation since the dawn of our creation, thousands of years ago. Sasquatches still are. And then ask the Indians or learn from internet or books or audio how to say hello. I come in peace. I mean no harm. I offer you some food. Go in peace. Goodbye. And then when you know there's a Sasquatch close to you, like you do in northern Vancouver Island, yo, Wixas, Majos Yechonach. Hello, I don't know who you are, Sasquatch. How are you doing? And you never know. You might hear them answer back, as they do with some tribes in the tribal language, because the shaman of the hairless bipedals has been interacting with the Sasquatches to learn the medicines. That's why the Omaha call her Sasquatch Sitonga, keeper of the medicine.
I have to ask you this with your tribal language and some of the things you've been talking about today. I wanted to ask you, it brought me upon, you're familiar with probably the work of Ron Moorhead and the Sierra Sounds?
Yeah, he's a good friend of mine.
Excellent. So, we have that samurai chatter, they call it in the where Ron Moorhead came across some 30 years ago. And listening to that, could you drive what these Sasquatch were speaking of, or is it a dialect unfamiliar with yourself?
I've heard them speak in Omaha Indian Reserve, back and forth to each other. I've heard them speak in northern Vancouver Island, my area, and they just sound like any other two Indians talking.
Okay.
Samurai chatter, I think that's the one recording on Ron's cassette tape, because I bought it back in the day when it was a cassette.
Right. Yes, correct.
From a magazine ad. I don't think it's Sasquatch. That's my personal opinion. Ron's a good friend of mine. He's also an elder in the Sasquatch industry, as I am, because I'm 60. But I don't think samurai chatter is in the vocalization of language of Sasquatch.
On your opinion, what do you think that they came across then? Something else, perhaps?
I don't want to dwell there because, number one, I wasn't there. But you can listen to the Beatles and Led Zeppelin, and it's amazing what things sound like when you take a reel to reel and play it backwards, or a record.
Well, yeah, I did that when I was a kid. I did Stairway to Heaven backwards. Yeah, and that was pretty creepy.
Yeah. So I've never heard, like Ron's, I even bought 2 CDs when they came to CDs. And, we even have it at SasquatchLegend.com. There's some really good Sasquatch vocalizations in there, but samurai chatter, I'm not even on the fence for that one.
Okay, we can go, get off of that topic. I did want to show something to everybody in the chat room for you that I did want to pull up for you. This is everybody. Now, all of Thomas's links are in the description of this show. Thomas Sewid, I cannot say it. I don't want to butcher it. He's got designs. Go to www.sasquatchthelegend.com. Email info@sasquatchthelegend.com. He's got his phone number there. So I suggest the links are in the chat if anybody wants to take a screenshot with your phone to get in touch with Mr. Sewid, because he's got a lot of cool things that he does sell online, a nice merchandising shop that he has. And I like the pictures there. I'm assuming that that's your, well, I'm not going to assume anything. The woman in the far left corner is your girlfriend, wife?
My common law wife.
Common law wife. I got you.
Yeah.
And I love this.
Going on 18 years.
Very nice. And I love those statues, although I assume those are statues. And look how they dwarf you. So would that be, that's probably the common size of a Sasquatch, eh?
They're about 8.5 foot big ones I've seen anyway. But one of the websites you forgot about is my personal one, SasquatchIsland.com.
I do have that.
Also, yeah.
Yes, I do have that in the link of this description as well. I have 3 of them in there, or 4 total, for everybody to go check out. So with that being said, let me just pull this down so we can pull you back up here. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, all your links are posted here. So thank you so much for that. Can you talk about anything that it doesn't matter when it was, 5 years ago, 20 years ago, when you were out, one of the experiences with Sasquatch? Now, again, I know you earlier in the show given us a brief description and biography of yourself. You made quite a bit of mention of these things, of the Sasquatch. What is something that was the most profound to you that you came across in your research and your happening out in the whether it's BC or in the Olympic Peninsula of Washington?
British Columbia, I guess it would be pissing up the tree higher than a Sasquatch. One day, we'd hear them, at night, you'd hear them making their noises, you'd smell them, and definitely smell them. We saw them, were anchored out on my commercial fish boat, about a 57-foot long wood salmon seine boat with a crew of 5, but 4 of us were on there. And we heard something on the beach, put the spotlight on. You got to remember, the spotlight was probably as big as diameter as a basketball. So it was a big spotlight. And we lit up a big male and a big female on the beach. And the female dropped in a fetal position with her buttocks pointing to the light. You could see her eye reflecting under her armpit as she was looking at the spotlight. The big male dropped, put his arm in front of his face, and you'd see 2 eyes, 1.5 eye, 1 eye, as he was breathing. 20 minutes, we tried to get him to move. They wouldn't move. Turn the spotlight off. You heard him get up, walk into the timber, push a big dead rotten tree down, and they were gone. And hour and a half later, my girlfriend and my one crewman are sleeping. Me and the other crewman are up. And that big male came along the opposite side of the bay we're closer to. And we could see it in the moonlight, walking, hair hanging, the whole 9 yards. Then we heard it leave the beach, crash through the slough leaves. It's like you grab a plastic tarp and you shake it. That noise sounds like when you walk through slough bushes in the Pacific Northwest, a really crackly noise. Stop. It whistle chirp, a higher pitch whistle chirp. The 2 Sasquatches came together, turned, and disappeared deeper into the island. We never seen or heard them again. But I remembered what he looked like, lighting them up in the spotlight. And another time I saw the same one. And then one time we were on my float house, me and a good friend of mine, a crewman, and we all know about Sasquatches can mimic owls, coyotes, whippoorwillows, ravens, eagles. They mimic everything, even chickens in Washington State. And on one of the Air Force bases, someone thought he heard his chickens by the gate, which was a quarter mile from his house when he was opening it. But it was a Sasquatch in the bush mimicking his chickens. So anyway, we're on the float house, me and my cousin, out in my abandoned native village when I was doing tourism in the summer. And 3-bedroom rancher on aluminum pontoons, picture that. I had all these docks and everything catering to the tourists. And It was super hot, dog day, August, no wind, 4, 5 in the afternoon, just cooking hot. So no tourists, no kayakers. So I'm just doing maintenance on the dock, and my cousin Mike smoking a cigarette in a chair, doing some wood carving. He's a native artist. And all my windows and sliding glass door in my float house are open because when it gets dark, when I go to bed, I don't want it to be 95 degrees in there. And all of a sudden you heard in my float house, Tommy, 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 like an Indian accent saying my name, Tommy. I ran in the float house. I'm looking in rooms, under beds, cupboards. I come walking out. I go, Mike, you heard that, right? I'm not on glue, am I? He goes, no, I heard your grandfather's voice calling you 3 times, Tommy. I'm like, I was hoping to see his ghost. But you heard that, right? And he's like, yeah, I heard it. Then all of a sudden across the beach, he heard, Tommy. We both turn and look. There's this big Sasquatch, just turns like that, the same one, and walks into the slough bushes and disappears. I looked at Mike. I'm like, what the F was that all about? I go, how the hell does he know my name? He
Right.
goes, think about it. All of a sudden, I'll call for you, Tommy. You'll go, what? Where's the chainsaw? Oh, I left it in the speedboat. 2 minutes later, Tommy. Yo, where's the file for the chainsaw? Oh, shoot, I left it on the kitchen table. And then a few minutes later, Tommy, and you'll turn around angry. What? Hot dogs are ready. Come eat. How many years you been out here now, Tommy? Of course they know your name. They even know your smell. And that was when I learned that smell is everything. And then it was instilled upon me by my Indian trainers for hunting. But then when I hooked up with Lucas White on the Omaha Indian Reserve, a tribe member who has lived close to the Sasquatches in the bush when he used to run away from foster care as a kid and hide out in the bush until October cold came. Then he'd walk into Macy, Nebraska, get apprehended by the police, get thrown in foster care because of the winter cold. March, he would steal blankets and food and money and go back to the bush and live in the bush again until October. So he knows a lot about Sasquatch. He's getting very close to getting our Diane Fossey, Jane Goodall interaction with the tribe, the clans down there. He calls them tribes. So he's taught me a lot. And one of the best thing, you smell funny. That's what he always teases me. So I asked him, what does it mean? He goes, remember that time when I was crouching low at night, we were investigating, the Sasquatches were whistling back and forth, and I kept touching you with my elbow and not looking at you? You said I had progressed back to feralism when I lived in the bush as a young man, boy. He goes, we can smell that on you. You smell like you too have been feral. And I said, oh yeah, 257 days in the bush without interacting with other humans, my record. And I just yearn for the time that I can walk into the bush again and spend months at a time, if not a year or more in there, but I can't. My leg's buggered up, my right leg, but I still do Sasquatch investigations out there.
I hear you. That's dedication. Lurks a lot in the chat room. Says, how many different types, subspecies are there? Some have canines, yet others have square eye teeth, etc. Thanks for the great show, Mr. Sewid. As always, very entertaining. So, any thoughts on that question from Lurks a lot?
I've only seen Sasquatch in Omaha Indian Reserve and the Pacific Northwest. They all look like Patty. And as far as the pictures I've seen of skunk ape, yeah, that looks like a different species. The muzzle video of the one supposedly sleeping in Kentucky back when the late Dr. John Bindernagel, my good friend, was alive and down there, he saw it. He said it's different than ours. It had like a muzzle like a baboon. And then as for the ones with big canines and dog man, never seen them, so I can't answer that.
T-Bone asks, what is the infrasound to the indigenous? I believe that's what that means. What is the infrasound? What is infrasound?
I think because I've seen someone get hit with infrasound and she almost lost it. She was investigating with us. She was crying. She was emotional. She was ready to faint. I've twice I felt where something was going on. Like I just had this really weird feeling, and it's just like almost like I was on the verge of a panic attack. I had one of those 8 years ago, and when I was 125 pounds heavier, and my blood was acting up. Anyway, I had a panic attack, and I reflected on the panic attack as those two times in bush where I felt that. It almost felt like I was like I've been underwater holding a rock with a hose going up for air and a mask on, where the killer whales were rubbing in shallow water, and I got hit a couple three times with sonar from them, and it feels like your heart and lungs are popping. That's what it felt like in the bush that time. And when I think I was infrasounded. I know we were infrasounded that time. That girl acted all up and said I had to get her back to the yacht. So the Indian people, when they speak of the supernatural part of it and things, I think that's probably what they experienced for the ones out in my area anyway. But as far as the other stuff, I don't know. And I just got informed about infrasound probably 5, 6 years ago. So it's intriguing, though.
It is. I won't get it. I think I got hit with something similar to that. I don't. It's very unexplainable. I can explain it very well, but I've never heard anybody experience what I did. I'm not going to get into this. Maybe another time. Really, briefly, I want to give out a couple thanks really quickly to let's see here. Brian Colsty, Mr. Castro, Larry Sharp, Miranda, T-Bone, Texas Front Porch, Keith, Mark, Z Hammer, and Chris Kramer. Thanks for the super chats and thanks for the pirate memberships. Very much appreciated, not expected. Love you guys. Thank you for that. Hit that like button, subscribe to our channels across the board. And again, all of Thomas's links are posted in this show description. So go check out Thomas. Thomas, I had a question. I heard a lot of stories about the Olympic Peninsula. Now, I wanted to, this is kind of a two-part question. One, my first question is, do you think the Sasquatch, I understand that the forest is Sasquatch domain. That's their home, as you said earlier. Do they have any specific, do they lay their head down in like a home within their home? And secondly, I've heard a lot of some of these researchers, not to mention any names, that say that Sasquatch have separate birthing areas and have come across birthing nests in the Olympic Peninsula. And I haven't heard that in any other state in the lower 48 anyway. And I'm wondering if you can speak on those really quickly.
Well, I found numerous teepee structures, 3 in one place on an oxbow on a river that's open. And what that was a boundary marker between the lower Ho Sasquatch clan and the upper Ho Sasquatch clan. On the Olympic Peninsula, though, the ones that's a specialist is the Olympic Project. Derek Randall started it, Shane Corson and David Ellis and their team. Highly recommend going to their YouTube, their face, and their website, and they've dialed in with the huckleberry nests that they've been finding that are what Sasquatches are sleeping in out here. And as far as the birthing houses and all that, like I say, I won't go near them. It's taboo. I've seen them possibly birthing, menstruating. I just won't go near them. Let's stay upwind of them and get the hell out of there.
Quick question for my buddy who I met in one of the many people I met, Pancho Zorge, awesome dude. Nice to meet you at the conference. He has a question. Could you ask Thomas about braided hair on Bigfoot? Braided hair on Bigfoot. I've heard about braided hair on horses.
Yeah, I've heard the one about horses. I've never heard about Bigfoot having braided hair. Oh, sorry, use the B word, Sasquatch. But you gotta remember, us Indians, I don't have hair.
Right.
If I could grow it back in the day, I would have braided it. Looked all stoic and all Indianish. You know, when I go to my mother's Cree Plains Indian tribes, central Canada, Saskatchewan, and you see those native girls with braids. Wow. You know, and guys who have nice, long, straight black Indian hair on braids. I wish I could have worn braids. So Sasquatch is seeing the Indians doing it. You know, I'm sure they mimic our sounds. Pretty sure they do the same, braid their hair. I know if I had long hair like a Sasquatch, I'd braid it. Maybe even do like some of those ladies do and braid the armpit hairs.
Oh, I don't know. Okay. I don't know about that one. Now, for a guy who has no hair, I was going to say, hairless, because Indian folks, they do have beautiful, lush black hair, the women and a lot of the men. And I guess in some are quite the opposite, eh? So, but anyway, Brandy, you have anything? I know Brandy's a little under the weather here. Brandy, you have anything else you'd like to interject today?
Absolutely not. I've learned a lot of stuff, and thank you, Thomas, for being here. I have opened my eyes to different things to think about now. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thomas, any
Like a
message
human,
you
think like a Sasquatch.
Thomas, what's the message you could tell our audience when it comes across the Sasquatch? Any message or anything, any words of wisdom for our followers? Oh, and by the way, speaking of followers, if you're new here, I only need 13 more subscribers to hit 6,000. So please subscribe. Let's do that this weekend, shall we? Any final parting words, Thomas? Thank you, Diane. Member for 20 months. Pirate. She's been a pirate for 20 months. Thanks, Diane. Final words, thoughts.
Always respect Sasquatch. They're totally respecting us. Do the same to them, other than the rogues. They just want to eat us. But always respect them. Don't tree knock. How would you like it if someone went to your house and kicked the door down, banged on the table, and told you, turn around and get out of here? That's what you're doing to the Sasquatch when you tree knock. And as far as one guy said to me, he goes, I can't sell tree knockers no more because all the podcasts and video casts you've done. I said, well, make those tree knockers useful. Start a fire and be warm for an hour. And don't tree knock. Never think of killing them. Never support, condone, or watch or subscribe to any of the killers out there. And we know who they are. Remember, Sasquatch lives matter because their land is our land. And we have shared it for thousands of years.
Yeah, I like that. I like the way you put that together there. Thomas's links, everything you can find in the description of the show. Everybody, please hit that like button on your way out. Subscribe to Blondes and the Booze, BMR Tex, Monica, Donnie Cho, Truth or Tinfoil. We got some other people that I'd like to talk about, but I'm not going to today because I'm kind of wore out too, Brandy. I know you're a little under the weather. I'm just still beat tired. I think I slept in 5 days, a total of 18 hours.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that I got to get up in 5 hours.
And you got to get them go back, do that
Yeah.
grind at work. Yeah, so we had a good time down there. Thomas, this was a fantastic show.
Thank you.
I learned a lot. I did not see your question, Patty. I'll give one more question if you want to type it real quick for Thomas. Brandy, you can go if you like. Patty, if you type it right now, I'll ask Thomas. I'll give you 5, 4, 3.
Hey, it takes a minute to type.
I'm kidding.
Don't be pushy. Don't be pushy. Takes a minute to type.
There's over 100 people in the chat room at one point, so I could not see all of the questions, So
that's a good chat room.
Yeah, we've got a great community. Thank you so much. Thanks everybody for coming in. I can't find it, little Patty. No pressure. No rush. Tom, here we go. Thanks, Patty. Little Patty, who's been with us for a long, long time. Thomas, do you know if they have single births, one offspring at a time?
Oh, sounds like it from the reports of people seeing them. Like they'll have, young two. The most I've heard is 2 young. Female, male had a boy that was the older of the 2, and then a younger one, which was female. But you got to look at Bush Code. It wasn't wise to have 16 children, and it wasn't wise for everyone in your tribe to have children all at once. So I think they've got, like I say, they have laws, very strict laws, and I'm pretty sure that they have laws. That's why we don't hear of mass. The biggest group I've heard of Sasquatches in one setting was off of northeastern Vancouver Island, where clam diggers heard something, smelled something, put spotlights up, and at the higher part of the beach, 9 or 11 Sasquatches, male, female, different sizes, walked by.
Wow.
Wow, fantastic. I tell you what, Thomas, and I don't say this too often, I learned so much in the almost 90 minutes. New things, new ideas. You kind of made me think differently on certain subjects. And I thought this was a great, number one, entertaining. You're very entertaining, very informational. I think you have a good message. And I think everybody in the chat room absolutely loved you. So, yes, I think you got some more followers or whatever you want to call it. So I think it's a very warm reception for you. I loved it. This was a great show. Maybe 6 months I'll have you back on because I know you have more to talk about.
That's right.
Oh yeah, anytime. And to the viewers out there and to you too, thank you very much. Kela kasla, my language, and halakila sla. Go in peace.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for that. Go in peace indeed. Everybody in chat, go in peace. And all you people not in the chat room, thanks for watching as well. For Brandy, for Thomas, I'm BMR. Until next time, we are out. But you know, I don't have an exit thing now. I don't have exit music anymore, Brandy. What am I going to do about that? I gotta make it. I gotta make a new one after the conference. Yeah, I need a new one. So we're just gonna end it with no music or nothing because we got rid of the Crossing Realms one finally. Yay!
Yay!
Yay! Thanks, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.